I had literally never thought about helping someone. I was the opposite guy. I was like, what profession earns the most money? And to see people who really, the weight that they have to live with is so oppressive. It's so hopeless in a sense. Well, it made me really angry that people had have to live that way. I felt very naive. I felt like the solution that we were trying to implement was a non sequitur. And so I started getting just really sad. Even if we take this solution that we have to a 10 out of 10, like there's never any chance that it's going to be a solution to someone who grows up experiencing this kind of difficulty.
Hey, welcome to Wealth Beyond Riches. I'm so glad that you stopped by. Today, we're going to talk with Riley Fuller, who I got to meet about a year ago. And since then, we have become fast friends. I brought him on here because he's that kind of person that makes you feel like you've been friends for a long, long time, even when you haven't. And I think you'll feel that today. And since we met here at Streamline, the wealth management company, who you stumbled across this YouTube page because of that, we've partnered with the nonprofit that he leads, Humanity and Hope United. And my family has sipped plenty of his other venture, Generous Coffee. But what's going to grab you today isn't his resume, it's his story. You see, Riley grew up as a 7th generation future small Indiana food business owner, instead left and chased big city finance. And then after a life-changing moment in Honduras, he was forced to ask, what's the value of my life? He found himself face to face with what he calls the birth lottery, how some of us win it and a lot of us don't. In this conversation, we get really personal, how he used his anger to catalyze redemptive action, and why servant leadership replaced managing by force, and how his team at Humanity and Hope is actually measuring hope and building it through real families, homes, and first-time entrepreneurs. If you've ever wondered what legacy looks like in real life, this one is for you. As David Green, CEO of Hobby Lobby, said in a prior episode, legacy is not what you leave with people, but what you set into motion. So stick around. Again, the whole point of the show is to go 1 to 2 to 3 layers deeper around your work and around your money. And I hope you find something that gets you 1% closer to who you really want to be. This is going to be good. You and I did meet for the first time, like a year ago? Going to the same conference we're going to tomorrow. We first met in Chicago. And you flew all the way from Houston to Chicago today to be here. So thanks for being here, man.
It's serendipitous timing.
It is. It is, man. Oh, I knew we were going to laugh, and it's already getting started. What's cool, though, is I feel like we became fast friends, and since then we've partnered on a couple of things. I know a couple of our clients here at Streamline have given to Humanity and Hope, an organization you run, and we'll talk about that for sure. And then secondly, another organization that you founded called Generous Coffee that has really good life-changing coffee. We usually give away around the holiday season to clients. And so that's been cool to partner with you on that. We'll talk about Generous Coffee as well. They give away 100% of their profits to nonprofits. So buy a bag today. generouscoffee.com.
Just Google Generous Coffee.
You'll find it. You've got a computer. You can figure it out. But thanks so much for being here. This is awesome.
I love that I get to be here. Super excited to be here.
Thanks, man. Hey, tell us, well, let's start here. Who is Riley Fuller? How did you get to today? Kind of talk us through I would say your career / life up to this point. Right now you're running a nonprofit, and I want to talk about what they're doing because you guys are doing some amazing work. But how'd you get there? What was that road like?
Yeah, well, it was indirect, mostly enjoyable. A lot of good times, good friends along the way.
Yeah.
Grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Indiana.
Yeah.
My family had been in Indiana at that point for 7 generations. So since the 1800s.
Wow.
And and actually, we'd been working on the same business together for 7 generations.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was called Little Crow Foods.
Okay.
Really strange name. I don't know of any other food companies named after crows. But they went into crows and kept it for 100 plus years. Anyway, we were in Indiana and we milled corn and other commodities, but mostly corn and wheat. And then we were on a north-south and east-west railroad track. So we would mill the products and then ship it off to the places it needed to be. Cornstarch, well, anything milled out of what they were growing around there.
And you can't answer my question about the corn sweat and if it's affecting the humidity.
My family was corn buyers, not corn producers.
Got it. All right. There we go.
Which to a layman might seem like the same thing. Have I detasseled corn? Yes.
Okay.
But anyway.
That's a record for being called a layman into my own podcast episode.
Man, well, you may need to cut that. I apologize.
It's all
so we got really into corn and agriculture.
Yeah.
And or at least milling it, and then over the generations, we tried to add more value to what we were doing, generation after generation. So by the time I got there, we had our own brands, like our own proprietary brands.
Yeah.
Did a lot of private labeling.
Okay.
Became the biggest cornstarch private labeler in the country.
Wow.
And
what's the cornstarch company that on the package? Is it Argo?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's one of them.
Okay.
So regionally, there's usually different brands for cornstarch producers.
Yeah.
Regionally.
Okay.
And then also, usually each big supermarket will have their own private label brand.
Got it.
So we got heavy into cornstarch and anything dried, really.
Yeah.
Coffees, teas, brownies.
Okay.
The biggest thing that we did was a dried chocolate oat cereal. No,
Okay.
wheat cereal.
Okay.
Called Cocoa Wheats.
Oh.
It was really big in West Virginia.
Okay.
And Western Tennessee.
Yeah.
Or Eastern Tennessee. And that was my upbringing. It was all small town family business. Been in the family for 7 generations. I was the 7th generation.
Okay.
So, really felt like I was joining something. Like my story did not start with me, which I think everybody's doesn't, but it was obvious to me from the beginning because I was joining something formal with values. To this day, and Dad, if you hear this is a shout out to you, but to this day, everything that I try to build, I want to have a family atmosphere. Like I want people to really care about each other, to bring candidness to each other, to bring their best and their worst, and to trust each other to get to a better destination, because of that kind of connection, that kind of family connection.
Yeah.
And so I try to build that into everything that I get to do now. But anyway, that's where I came from.
Yeah. How long did you do that for?
Well, I started going into the factory probably when I was like 2 to ride my bike on the weekends.
Yeah.
With my training wheels, go up the cargo elevator, just being the owner's son.
Yeah.
And then I got my first job there probably 15.
Okay.
And I did everything there.
Mm-hmm.
I did maintenance, I did cleaning, I did mixing. Everything was dried and different ingredients. So you'd get these 50 or 100 pound sacks of raw commodity.
Okay.
Cut it open with your X-Acto knife.
Yeah.
Put in 10 or 100 of those, mix it with the other stuff, and then this huge industrial mixer would create a final product.
Unreal.
So I worked in mixing. I worked on the production lines, like literally, this was before a lot of automation, putting plastic bottles on the line. They worked 10.5-hour shifts a day there.
Goodness.
And so I did all kinds of stuff there. And so it was probably 15 to 21 where I got paid for the work I was doing there.
Okay.
Other than that, it's just what we did.
Yeah. Was that like apprenticeship at that point of just kind of like learning the different parts of the business?
Definitely.
Yeah.
There was a time when, my dad was formally, and my mom, I guess, but were formally apprenticing me to join the business.
Okay.
And so, part of it was that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And part of it was just being a kid who wanted to make some money too.
Yeah.
So it was great fuel for me to get other jobs. Because after I started working in the factory, I was like, Dad, I'm smart. I got a spirit. I got ideas.
Yeah.
What in the world are you putting a guy like me in the factory for? And he's
Yeah.
like, this is where you're at.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to go be a lifeguard. I'm going to go work for the city and do road maintenance.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of other jobs like that. But anyway, where it got me to was dreaming to be a professional athlete.
Okay.
I was like, this stuff.
Oh, I didn't know this. This is
not,
good.
This stuff is not for me. I do not want to work in a factory. I don't feel like I belong in, which I don't feel this way anymore. But growing up in a small city, I was like, I just want to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to feel like, you know, these dreams that I have inside of me that feel so big and so alive,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I want to prove that they're real.
Yeah.
And so anyway, did not work on the professional athlete thing, obviously. But in the midst of pursuing that, I left my small town in Indiana.
Yeah.
And
sorry, we can't go past this without going, what sport?
soccer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Or football, as most people in the world call it.
Yes.
And so all I did outside of my family business as a kid was play sports. Soccer, basketball, track, you know, all year around. And anyway, so I got a D1 offer to play for one of the top 20 teams in soccer.
Wow.
And so I took it, and I was like, man, I've been busting my butt all of high school. I'm not going to play basketball. I'm not going to run track. I'm just going to kind of chill.
Mm-hmm.
And so I met this girl, ended up deciding to prioritize her over my soccer career. She was staying in Indiana. So I probably called every school in Indiana. Was like, hey, you know, I'm a good soccer player.
Yeah.
I just want to play in Indiana.
Yeah.
And all the D1 schools were like, you know, we already filled our roster.
Yeah.
And so I found a D3 school that would, you know, let me play and like help financially.
Yeah.
And so ended up going there. The girl cheated on me. It's a sad story, like a month into university.
Oh my goodness.
And in a way that was really, really painful. And so I think that just was something that I was completely unprepared for, you know, and my family, what we did was build excellence. And like, I didn't, you know, my parents are amazing people. They're both still alive. They're both amazing. And so they didn't fight in front of us. In fact, I don't even know if they've ever gotten into a fight. But
probably have.
But they might just be perfect. But what that meant is that, you know, when the difficult times really came, I didn't have a difficult time until I was 19 years old.
Wow.
But for me, you know, when that difficult time came when I was 19 years old, when I've been dreaming about being a professional athlete and feeling like I was really close, and then changing my goal and putting love on top of that, and then just being chopped at the knees by something dishonest, and man, I didn't know how to deal with it. And so I went into trying to numb the pain. And then after years of that, I ended up getting kicked out of this school while I was the captain of the soccer team. I got arrested, I think 11 times in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. For all for things that have to do with numbing, drinking and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I got to a point, you know, I had all these dreams, first about owning my parents' business, and then about really becoming someone in the world. And then I got to a point, you know, after feeling all that pain and trying to numb it, a few years after that, I'm sitting in county jail for a month. And I had been in jail, you know, probably at least, after all those arrests, 5 or 6 times. You know, because I didn't have to go into the jail cell every time. Yeah. For those of you who are not past criminals, you don't have to go to the jail cell every time, depending on what you're arrested for. Yeah. So anyway, as I'm sitting in the jail cell for a month, after having been arrested in this downfall that was worse than anything I could have ever pictured myself going through. Yeah. Going from being, you know, feeling like I was going to be a business owner, like I'm just meant to be an owner, to then sitting in county jail thinking like, maybe I'm meant to be a meth addict. I don't, you know, not really, but I was in a block full of mostly people who were there for meth crimes. And so I was like, is this where I belong? Yeah. You know, is this what my life has turned into? Yeah. And then in that moment, I got out. I was interning for Lincoln Financial Group. They still kept me on somehow in the midst of all that. But so I get out of jail. I'm 21 years old, and my dad comes to me and he's like, "Son, you got to come with me to Honduras this time." He just invited me to Honduras the year before that.
Okay.
I'd turned him down. My family had gone to church for a long time, but the kind of church where my parents would kind of skip out to go have brunch with their friends, and I would skip out to go like buy some candy. And we'd meet back when it ends. So it was something we did together.
Yeah.
But it was more cultural than alive spiritually.
Yeah.
And but it just changed for my parents like a year before that. And so my dad had started serving internationally. Invited me year one. I was like, how does this make any sense for me accomplishing my goals or becoming the person that I want to be? And then the next year, feeling so vulnerable and a month out of jail, I'm like, all right, Dad, I'll come down to Honduras with you.
Yeah.
And in a way that has led to where I am right now.
What'd you see when you were there?
Well, I saw things that you could see, if you're willing to get on a flight here in Chicago, things that you can see, within like a 4 or 5 hour flight. You don't really see it, or I guess I haven't really seen too much of it here in the US. I think you did generations ago. But the way I put it is that I saw people who have lost the birth lottery. There's a moment where, our souls or just like the deepest parts of us, like come here to earth somehow, like we land here, and then we gain our consciousness or our awakeness. And there we are with a set of parents in a community with connections or lack of connections, under a government with certain beliefs about gender and identity. And where I found myself was places that if you would rank those certain landing spots from 0 to 100 in terms of the advantages that it gives somebody or the opportunities that it provides you, I felt like I'd come to a place where there was just not much advantage or opportunity, where being born there, more than give you a hand up or a push forward, it gives you a huge weight on your back. Places where, no one has electricity, homes are made out of things that people are able to use for free that they find. Places where, if you're born there, you could expect your education to end between 3rd and 6th grade. If you're a girl, you can expect to be victimized with impunity. You can't go to the police.
Oh my goodness.
Families in these areas earn, between $1 and $5 or $10 a day. It just is the toughest kind of existence. You don't have the basic human needs.
Yeah. I love this idea of the birth lottery of like, what are the things that we don't control in life? And a huge one is the family that we're born into. It's not something we chose. You weren't like, you know what? I'll take the Fullers. They look nice. I'm going to jump into that household. And so you're coming across people who, it's tough situations. What was that like coming face to face with that? What would that feel like that first trip down?
Well, I mean, I had literally never thought about helping someone.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this wasn't something that came from my own heart. Like I was never like, I wonder how people in other parts of the world live, and I wonder how I can make their lives better. Yeah. I was the opposite guy. I was like, what profession earns the most money? And then how do I step on the other people who are already in line so I can get ahead of them? Yeah. In this thing to make the max money. Yeah. And so I would say, I was unprepared. It was just not what I had been building my life to experience in any kind of way. Yeah. And so, maybe there is a little bit of innocence there too, just because it was just not in my mental frame. Yeah. So, gosh, I was trying to answer your question, honestly. It was so terrible. Like people, when you're born in an area where you really do feel like you have some opportunity, and I was in the middle of squandering my own. And to see people who really, the weight that they have to live with is so oppressive. It's so difficult. It's so hungry. It's so dirty. It's so hopeless in a sense.
Yeah.
That it was, it took me to the end of myself. It made me, it made me really angry that people had, have to live that way.
Yeah.
I felt very naive. And I still, let's see, I felt like the solution that we were trying to implement was a non sequitur. I felt like even if we take this solution that we have to a 10 out of 10, like there's never any chance that it's going to be a solution to someone who grows up experiencing this kind of difficulty.
Okay.
And so I started getting just really sad. I've got some empathy in me. And then I started being like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't fit. And I wonder what else is out there. I wonder how other people are conceptualizing, helping in these extremely difficult circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this concept, I'm gonna butcher it. It is, I forget who it's from. It might be C.S. Lewis or something like that, but it's called the idea of like crystallized discontent. You talked about being angry when you were there, and how some of the most redemptive things in this world start from a place of anger, of like, this situation, this circumstance that's in front of me, I'm so almost enraged by it that I want to do something about it to change it. And it's a place we need to find sometimes, because if you want to create change, you can't just be going for, I feel like a big pull for people these days is comfort and ease. And that doesn't come from being angry about something. That just comes from trying to serve the self. And you had a moment of one, I think what's interesting is the timing of all this. Like I guess you weren't ready when your dad had asked a year prior. I wonder if you had gone at 15, if that would have hit you. But because you were kind of at the end of yourself and being thrust into this, do you think the timing like played a factor in it?
I do. I think about that a lot. I do. I think for a lot of us, you get to a point in life where you want to be a part of righting the wrongs, or being able to implement, helping other people to not waste time or to create pain the same way that you have.
Yeah.
And so, I think that if I could have gotten exposed to something like that earlier, as early as possible, with a wise guide, then I think that it would have helped my soul not feel so selfish. It's really like, I'm an extremist. And so when I was going in all in on being selfish, man, I knew how to be selfish and to only think about myself.
Yeah.
And I think that if even as a kid, if I would have been around an environment where people are really vulnerable and on the fringes and struggling, and with a group that was like, hey, you have a way to help people like this, I think that would have done me some good.
Yeah. It's so interesting to think about. So what changed when you came back from that trip?
Oh man, honestly, nothing.
Okay.
So that first trip I came back and was like, holy cow, that was an emotionally jarring experience. Yeah. That was when I was 21. I didn't become a believer. I didn't become a Christian until I was 30. So I just had a different mental frame for all of it.
Yeah.
I saw it as something, helpful and probably part of making my life story more interesting. I had more to talk about at bars and parties. But I came back and I was like, basically, that was a hallucination. That was weird. On to the next.
Yeah.
So, but I was 21. I was finishing my senior year in college.
Yeah.
I had this job as a derivatives trader in hand.
Yeah.
So all I had to do was make it through, the last 8 months of college or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, I was going to be like making that money that I had always wanted to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't think too much about Honduras. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you start thinking about it again?
Well, so as I was about to graduate from my senior year, I started thinking about, holy cow, I don't want to go back to jail again this summer. What do I, so I've been in AA for a long time, in recovery.
Yeah.
I like to share these parts of my story because, the darkness just doesn't have any hold on me over that anymore. And I know, all the time there are people out there, like, addiction is hard. And I think most people get addicted to something. For some of us, it's substances, which makes it more obvious. But anyhow, so that's why I bring up that stuff, because I like it. If anybody's out there struggling, to know that there's a path forward. But anywho, so I went all the way into making money, started thinking, how do I go this summer without, creating more wreckage in my life? And I'm like, I'll move to Honduras. I've been there, was interested.
Okay.
I know if I'm there, I could speak Spanish at that point, a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, I knew. Un poco, yeah. Solo un poquito. Pero aprendí mucho más. But I learned a lot more. And then so I was like, okay, I know that I can't go to bars down there. And I know that I can't ever think about, like, trying to buy weed or something like that. That's really, kind of normal and blasé here. There, it's like, if you buy weed, you're going to get murdered by the cartel.
Okay.
So
all right.
don't even.
Don't think
so
about
I'm like,
it.
I'm going to move down to Honduras because I know if I'm there, I'll be too afraid to participate in any of my addictive behaviors, that it'll keep me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
And so I moved to Honduras that summer. It's like a weird recovery tactic. It was successful short term, but not long term. And then while I was down there, I decided to volunteer for all kinds of for the government, for Christian organizations, even though I wasn't a believer, for humanitarian organizations. I was just interested in this little time I was down there pursuing this question of, does anybody have a solution, for this huge and hugely important problem?
Yeah.
So I spent 3 months down there. I got hazed by some Honduran people whose organization I was volunteering for.
Okay.
And
what do you mean?
Well, like, day number one, hey, hop in this guy's truck, take me to the mountain, drop me off with a machete, and be like, we'll be back.
Oh, okay.
Mow, his name was Don Juan. It ended up being this guy's father-in-law. He's like, mow Don Juan's mountain with this machete. And so this is the second day. Day one, we went and bought an air conditioner. Day two, here we are.
Yeah.
And so these guys just dropped me off. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I assumed they'd be back. I mean, I didn't know anything about Honduran culture at that time. So I don't think I knew. I didn't assume anything. I just assumed they'd be back.
Yeah.
They didn't come back until like 5 p.m. And, in my family business, like, working hard, work ethic is just a really foundational thing. Whatever you do, you're going to bust your butt at, especially if it's day one, and you're making a first impression.
Yeah.
And so I start just killing it with this machete. And, 3 hours later, they're not there. 5 hours later, they're not there.
Oh my gosh.
8 hours later, they're not there. So I end up, I thought it was smart at the time. I ended up filtering river water through my shirt, which anybody who knows anything about anything knows that's not going to take Giardia out of it. So I ended up getting really sick after drinking this river water, on day two, where all I was trying to do was be curious about how people are trying to help other people and what this group specifically was doing to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I just got hazed. So, I end up just getting this Giardia that tears through me. I'm out of it for like 3 days with so much like vomiting and, GI stuff. And then I go back and volunteer for their organization more. A bunch of stuff just happened. They were just there. They were enjoying hazing me. Ended up firing me 2 weeks into it for wearing sandals to the office. And I didn't know that you weren't supposed to wear sandals. So just like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I moved down to Honduras for the summer. I'm like, holy cow, that was a weird experience. And then I just moved back, started my derivatives trading job, and I thought that chapter was closed and done.
Yeah.
And like I would never go back to. I didn't think I'd ever go back to Central America. I didn't particularly enjoy it at that point, and that was that.
Yeah. So you did the Lincoln thing for a while, trading derivatives. When Honduras was calling you back and you didn't know it, but when did that pop up again?
Yeah. It was, I remember. It was this day where, we did this deal, had this thing, made this money, and it felt special. And so we went out to celebrate, and it was in 2008, and things were really bad for the economy overall. I was a derivatives trader.
Yeah.
And it was credit default swaps, which what a derivative is this is a good part of the podcast.
This is great.
It's a financial instrument that does not itself have underlying value, but it gets its value from some other contract.
Yeah.
And so credit default swaps were something. I had $1 billion portfolio of credit default swaps that this particular insurance company had sold protection on.
Yeah.
So which is just not what you wanted to be owning back then. But anyway, we made a bunch of money on it.
And for the layman, if you want to learn more, watch the movie The Big Short, written by Michael Lewis.
Super entertaining.
Yeah.
And so the person who created credit default swaps, there were a couple people. One of the main people worked for UBS.
Okay.
UBS was in Stamford, Connecticut, which is, about an hour and a half via train from our office in Philly.
Okay.
So they came out. This guy was like a week before that testifying in front of Congress. And I'm pretty sure, I might be making this up, but I'm pretty sure there was like some clip of him on CNN like during the dinner, because he was testifying to whatever the Senate committee is trying to figure out what's in these derivatives. And
is this the Ryan Gosling character from the movie?
He had to be older than, right? No, this guy was gray haired.
Oh, okay. All right.
But anyhow, so in the midst of him talking, basically saying deceiving things to Congress, we had a great day. We buy tons of, tens of thousands of dollars of food and sake and wine at this restaurant in Philly. And I'm just feeling on top of the world. It's like, here's all my goals. Like, I want to be somebody. I want to feel like somebody, I want to be a mover and a shaker. And like, when I say something, I want people to care.
Yeah.
And, and so I was feeling like, and this is, obviously not true now with my spiritual eyes, but I was feeling like I was really becoming somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then on my way home, I ended up giving food to a homeless guy and having a long conversation with him and really thinking about my life. And he said, "Thank you. I'll never be able to repay you. You must be some kind of angel."
Wow.
And
wow.
And thinking about that, like, honestly, I'm just a Midwestern guy who didn't want to waste the fanciest food in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Very little of that was unselfish. Very little of it was like me thinking about some human being and their suffering. And anyhow, that experience, somehow feeling like I was becoming somebody, and then really feeling like I was a not very good human being. Like, this guy's calling me an angel. And like, I know myself, I'm not. At that point, I'm not spending any of my time on anything other than myself. Like, I'm only working, I'm doing drugs to like stay awake longer. And this guy says it to me, and it's basically like my soul breaks. I'm like, I'm barely alive. Like, my life doesn't really mean very much. And we talked a little bit about this before, but that's when these thoughts about legacy started to just feel like haunt me. It was like a place that my mind couldn't escape.
Yeah.
It's like, if you were today, and it sounds really morbid, but we can judge it later, because the question ended up helping me a lot.
Yeah.
Was if you were to die today, what is your life value?
Yeah.
Like, what has your life produced? And at that point, I was only 24. So thankfully, like, I have now I'm 40, I've had time to make other choices, better choices. But if at that point, I had to answer that question, then I would have been so sad about the answer. Like, my life has been all about me, and I don't really have much to show for it.
Wow.
And so honestly, like, the way it hit was I just felt like I was in this existential crisis and this darkness. Like, I don't know if I'm going to find my way out of it. I felt very depressed. I felt, almost like spirit of death is just like cohabitating this space with me. And it just stayed that way for a few days. And then out of nowhere, like a flash of lightning, I remember Honduras. And in Honduras, I didn't just have an experience, but I had this vision for a way to what I thought help people better.
Yeah.
But I didn't want that vision. I wasn't interested in pursuing helping people. And so when it came to me the first few times, I just kind of stuffed it and was like, this doesn't have anything to do with where I'm going in life.
Yeah.
But once I felt like my life was going to be meaningless, I got that flash and I was like, holy cow, I've had this dream for everybody, I think, who's had an experience like mine, who travels to a community like those, they want to help people too. That's not unique to me.
Yeah. Well, you get proximity to a real issue, and all of a sudden your perspective changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's it's almost a 1-for-1. It's almost like everybody who has that kind of experience and gets in proximity of struggle ends up caring. And so
I don't want to go past this moment you're having, because your story is super unique. I also don't think the struggle though of that mountaintop experience and then going, is this all there is? I don't think that's super unique. I think it's actually super common. And hitting that, I've got this career finally, or we've got this, we got the lake house, or whatever it is. I think a lot of people hit I sold the business. There's the, and now what? And so I love this part of the story because the and now what has some awesome stuff after it. So I love, I love hearing about even in that night, you're like questioning, you're like, is this what I'm here for? Is this it? I mean, this is great, but I thought it
would be great.
Yeah.
And then didn't feel great.
Yeah. Random question.
Uh-huh.
The guy who called you an angel, do you think he was maybe an angel?
I think there's a good chance. Oh, well, I don't know.
I don't.
Okay. All right. Here's my honest answer.
Okay.
There's a 50% chance he was an angel, and there's a 50% chance that he stopped smoking crack, like when I started talking to him.
Okay.
But
the thought just crossed my mind for a second.
But either
where
way,
I'm like, I wonder if there's some weird irony there.
I mean, it could be.
I don't know.
It definitely could be.
Yeah.
But so after that experience, I felt all of this darkness. And I really, it sounds silly because it was only like 3 or 4 days of it. But at the time, it felt to me like I might not get out of it. It felt like, and I wasn't thinking about taking my own life at all, but it just felt like
it wasn't going to go away.
Like it wasn't going to go away. Yeah. Thank you. I wasn't going to be able to find those words. And so anyway, like flash, this vision that I'd had about helping people comes back to my mind. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go back to Honduras and see what I think. So I joined the group that I'd gone with the first time.
Okay.
This is 2010. My first time going was in 2006.
Yeah. And one thing you said, sorry to interrupt. One thing you said is like you've had the dream or you've had the vision, but you were like, this isn't for me. You said the phrase like, but I didn't want it. And I don't want to correct that, but I feel like people have vision. They just know what it's going to cost to go after it. And I wonder if it was the cost that like, hey, I know I want this vision and I want to find the solution to this problem for these people. but I also realize what it's going to cost me to do that. And now that I don't want it, but I'm unwilling to give that stuff up. Does that sound right? Like, does that sound like?
I would say that, so I got the vision for what is now Humanity and Hope in 2007.
Okay.
I started pursuing it in 2010. And here we are in 2025. And like, the vision's the vision. I would say when I first got it, I genuinely just didn't want it.
Okay.
It didn't have the way that I was perceiving my own life. Spending time trying to raise money that I'm then going to give away was a dysfunctional thought process. Like that just didn't seem to fit in a way where you're trying to build things with value that are excellent.
Yeah.
And then, over time, it got to a point where what you're talking about, yeah, I can see the value and I care about the value and I connect with the value, but I just either don't want to or I'm afraid to sacrifice things that bring me comfort.
Yeah.
That took me a lot of maturing to get there.
Okay.
So for sure, but it took me a while to get there. I got the vision in 2007 and then I got to the spot you're talking about like in 2013.
Okay. All right. And then let's jump for a second to like today. If we can do that.
Yeah.
What is Humanity and Hope doing right now? Like what are you pumped about? What do you get excited when you wake up in the morning thinking about that you guys are doing?
Yeah. Well, I get really excited. Like I just got back from Honduras last weekend, and I got to be a part of 3 different trips. There was one from Nashville, one from Indiana, and then another one from Indiana and Chicago. And there were people from the communities that I've been telling you about, that start off with no electricity, no jobs, no homes, no education, no income, no assets, no wealth, nothing but the spirit that God gave them. There are people that started off from communities like that are now professionals who've graduated university that join our team as people who serve the communities that they come from, even though they still live there.
Yeah.
And the H&H is only, Humanity and Hope is only 15 years old, so these girls were like 6 and 7 years old when I met them, pictures of me like throwing them up in the air. And so, what H&H does is create a human mind that is able to succeed like that, even coming from a community, like the ones that we've described. And that's what I'm most excited about is just, and I can't take credit for it, but this vision for some reason that God gave me, it's different than what exists out there right now for those of us who want to help people that come from communities like that, or even who want to help ourselves.
Yeah.
But the idea is that there are all kinds of ways to conceptualize helping people. In the nonprofit world, there's asset-based development, there is microfinance, there are innovative business techniques to connect people to markets or entrepreneurship, or all kinds of ways to help people.
Yeah.
And our way of helping people is building hope, which sounds it just doesn't do it justice. So what that means is you're building a mindset. A mindset is where our 40 to 60,000 thoughts per day spring from. It's where the attitudes for our life comes from. It's where the vision, for where our soul trajectory is going.
Yeah.
We build that mindset. A mindset's called hope. Defining hope, it is acting and believing like the best is yet to come. Scientifically, hope is built on a 3-legged stool. You have to have a goal to pursue. You have to have a pathway to get from where you are to where you want to be. And you have to have agency or power, or what we say, the Holy Spirit. You have to have some kind of power to traverse that path, especially if it's one that has never been done before.
Yeah.
And then also scientifically, once you have built that pathway, basically the neural pathway, like once you have hoped, it is much easier to keep hoping. And it builds on itself. And it's also this this deep reality that you can both measure and connect outcomes to. And it's pretty intuitive to think that the more that someone believes and acts like the best is yet to come, the better the outcomes for their life are going to be.
Yeah.
But, you know, hope, like this idea of a mindset that's constantly oriented on God's Spirit, saying, because of your character, I believe the best is yet to come.
Yeah.
I don't believe it in a way that I think it. I believe it a way that I am. And when I catch myself getting in a thought process outside of that, I've trained my mind so much that I can bring it back in. And I can say, okay, it's natural to have a stray thought, you know, but I'm the kind of person that trains my mind to think in ways that serve me to reach my goals. And this is how you do it. By setting the goal, building the pathway, and then building the personal power to traverse it. In a nonprofit context, that means that to be able to set those goals, you have to listen. And to be able to do it well, you need to know who to listen to. And so we do a big effort on understanding who are the leadership groups in each community. In Honduras, legally, each community has to have a particular leadership group that's a treasurer, a president, a vice president, and what's called a vocal, which I don't know how to translate into English. But so from the very beginning, we do a lot of leadership training with those people. Take them to the Global Leadership Summit. We do, and we work with them every week, you know, with members of staff. But that's what I'm excited about, is our way of helping people is different. It's building a mind powered by the Holy Spirit that is able to hope, you know, which by its nature is achieving goals and building the pathway and the power to do so. You know, hope, like, you know, I think like we all know is true. Hope is an anchor for the soul, which means that when the times get tough, if you have this kind of mindset, you are going to be more adaptive. You're not going to be a victim. You're not going to let your emotions be your leader, but you're going to take this thought process, and it says, even though I'm feeling this particular way, this is my process. I set a goal, I build a pathway, and then I find the power from God to be able to do it successfully. You know, so when the toughest of times come, you're adaptive. Let's see, hope is a social gift, you know, where there are those of us who have it, especially if you understand the mechanics of it, you can give it away without losing any. You know, so that's what I'm really excited about, is that I see that this solution that we have is both unique, it's decipherable, and it's lifting these kids that come from the communities that, you know, hadn't had any success stories. They hadn't had any elementary school graduates. They hadn't had any entrepreneurs. They hadn't had anybody who'd ever built wealth of any kind. You know, no money to buy a home or anything like that. To see kids lift themselves out of that and then join the group of people who are serving the communities where they came from. I love that. Like, I don't even know the words for that. I feel very thankful to participate in something like that.
We were talking before we started recording about the Global Leadership Summit, which you and I are going to tomorrow, and Spencer's going to as well, who's doing the media. And you talked about not like seeing yourself as a leader growing up. And in fact, one of the previous guests, Brad Lomenick, was talking about like leadership is sometimes one of those gifts that like you can see all the way back to childhood. Like when you were on the playground in Indiana, like who was getting the kickball game together? Like who was kind of organizing everybody here. Let's get all the people together. Let's pick teams. Let's get this thing rolling. And you had lost that for a bit, more being boss manager, but then going to the Global Leadership Summit, that got reignited in you. Talk about that. Like what came back to the surface of was it like being called a leader? Was it being like invited into leadership? Like how was that impactful for you?
Yeah, I would say, you know, where I had been, you know, working prior to that, you know, I thought that we were there to hit goals, to set and hit goals. And so I didn't really think about leadership. I thought about managing and really, you know, forcing or manipulating. But when I came to the goal, you know, because the goals are the goals, you know, the Wall Street's going to report the progress every quarter. And so you have to hit the goals. And if you're not going to hit the goals, I'm going to try to do what I can to get you to hit the goals.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you're fired. And, you know, so it was just very heartless and impersonal, you know. And so coming to the Global Leadership Summit, where I started back in 2013, I think, it's always been about servant leadership, which I thought in the beginning sounded really strange, and I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's how it's really helped me. It was just completely bring in this new frame of a leader. And what does Craig Groeschel say? Be a leader that people love to follow, or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, this idea that you can work closely with people, hit goals, and be closely connected in a positive way.
Yeah.
You know, I think that really like called out to me as something that I wanted, and I didn't even know it existed. It was just it was a different, complete frame than what I was used to.
Yeah. That's really cool. I think of that, that idea around authority and that your view of authority can really impact your leadership. And authority could be twofold. One, authority could be used to oppress or push down, or people are means to an end, like you were talking about, really honestly. Craig Groeschel also says people want to follow a leader who's always real rather than one who is always right. And that's one thing you're great at, is being real. I'm really good at being right. And
together we could be Craig Groeschel there.
we could be. We could
combine us.
We could be both kinds of leaders, but nobody will like me. But the other, really the intended purpose of authority, think about Adam and Eve and having dominion in the Garden of Eden, and ruling and having dominion and flourishing. Authority was to bring blessing. And you look at the life of the person of Jesus. He came with authority, and people marveled at his authority. He wasn't telling anybody what to do. He was asking questions, and he was meeting people in their workplace. And he was, like you were talking about, listening. And that authority was meant to bring blessing. And I think that's something that's clicked for me recently in terms of like servant leadership, is like our job as leaders is to actually bless the people who we have influence over. And those are the leaders that people want to follow, I think, at the end of the day. So that's cool that you had that experience at the GLS to kind of reframe that. I want to go back to H&H, and you were telling me like maybe 6 or 8 months ago, I was actually in front of Sparrow Coffee, my favorite coffee shop, and we were talking on the phone. You were in Texas. You were talking about working with a professor around like actually scientifically measuring hope. Remind me what that's all about.
Yeah. So I was working with a fellow at the Brookings Institute.
Okay.
The Brookings Institute is a nonpartisan think tank in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
They've got multiple mandates, but one is well-being, understanding human well-being and promoting it. And, so I have a lot of this hope-based development that we're a part of, it's kind of an experiment. Mm-hmm. We're piloting it. And so I reached out to a couple people who I knew had gotten pretty deep into hope. This field became a valid scientific field in the 1990s. Okay. So it's only, 30 plus years old. Yeah. So I found 5 of them who had, more than a decade of experience, emailed all of them, with the sales pitch of, hey, if you're interested in hope, there's no more interesting opportunity than this. Yes. To bring your academic side, and match it into real life. And so, whether it was divine match or whatever, there's a lady who I ended up coming across who grew up in Peru.
Okay.
She now lives in the U.S., so she understands, developing world context, speaks Spanish, plenty of experience there. And anyway, I reached out to her, and she and I built a tool together to measure a participatory survey.
Okay.
Where people answer 11 questions, and then that gives you a hope score at the end.
What?
Between 0 to 11. And so we created that in 2022 and 23, implemented it in 24, got our first measurements, and then we'll get our second ones this year.
Oh, wow.
But then over time, we're going to take those raw scores and link them to all this other data that we have.
Yeah.
Humanity and Hope has 6 pillars. We help boards of directors of these rural communities basically reach excellence in 6 different areas. And it's healthcare, education, economy, community, leadership, and infrastructure. And anyway, so over time, we're going to link these hope scores with the data points that fall under those 6 pillars. Like someone that is more hopeful, on average earns this much more income, on average attains this much more education, on average has this much later of a date for the age of their first pregnancy. Things like that.
That's awesome.
Which, even the way to measure a hopeful mindset didn't exist in our context before a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So being able to link that with outcomes, I'm hoping to prove that the way we invest our money, can be a lot more effective if you follow, a simple process that empowers people, and is born by listening, rather than dictating.
That's awesome. What else strategically are you guys working on right now?
We do a lot of home building.
Okay.
And our main thing, we love, my life was changed by a service trip. So I never forget that. One of the best things that we do is offer the opportunity to build a home or to help build a home, to finance it, and then to come to Honduras and actually participate in the building of it. So we do a lot of that. We're always building new businesses. We're always piloting new ideas. We just did a combination of a chicken business and a preschool co-investment.
Okay.
And so it was all meant for... the chicken business is all women entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So after a 12-month basically training and operating the business cycle, which we're piloting, like other nonprofits don't do this either. It's like, we raise our own money. If these ideas are not popular in the nonprofit world, that's okay. We'll try it anyway, as long as our donors are, can get behind it.
Yeah.
And so it's all women entrepreneurs, first time, who have kids 0 to 5 years old. And so there's a preschool now with 9, 10 kids, and then a business of most of their moms or a lot of their moms working, being business owners for the first time. So, just on the educational front, these kids, 1 and 2 year olds are light years ahead of 7 and 8 year olds from other communities. And then, when you get to measuring the income, let alone the role model that the mom creates.
Yeah.
It's just really fun to be able to, anyway, those are the kind of things that I get really excited about.
Yeah.
Is trying new things for the first time. One thing that I'm really excited about is, which I've never said this publicly, but bringing recovery a way for people. And I've been in recovery for 3 years now, formally, or sober for 3 years. And it has brought me so much freedom and peace, and just, feeling like I can help other people with the same things that used to weigh me down.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in, working on that, bringing recovery, something that is really available and doable and practical to Honduras too. Anyway, that's a smattering.
Yeah.
I've got so many, I don't want to take up too much time. I could talk about this question for hours.
Yeah, man. No, I love it. And one, I wanted to, I always love to just highlight amazing organizations that are doing incredible work. And I even love the entrepreneurial spirit of like, we got to try some things, because the formula for this has not been perfected. Otherwise, a lot of these problems would be gone. And so I love just that, the open-handedness of like, we're going to see where this goes. But you guys, you have pillars and values. It's not like you're just winging everything. It's like, no, we have values that we abide by. Here's how we serve people. Let's try different strategic things. You're just changing.
It's just different than anything else that exists in the nonprofit industry. Like when I limit these, but when I go to nonprofit conferences, I'd probably do like one a year.
Yeah.
You know, our core philosophies and the way we do things, there's just so much of a delta between us and the mainstream. That, you know, until all the data's there to prove what we all feel, you know, and believe that this is more effective, you know, more functional and better investment.
Yeah.
But until the data's there, it's kind of, you know, we're just kind of treated as the unproven voice at the table will be a diplomatic way to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. What, you mentioned one really cool way people can get involved, and I love this, like help fund a home and then come help build it at the same time. So it connects like their financial investment, financial gift with actual proximity, and then also being a part of it, like investing of their time. What are other ways people can like get more involved or find out more, or like help out if they're like, you know, thinking of the person who's listening, they're driving in the car right now, they're running on the treadmill, and they're like, you know what, I've had an experience like that where I got some proximity to some need, and I'd like to maybe check that out, like, and that seed's been planted in them. What's a great next step for them?
I'd say come visit us in Honduras.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard, or it can be hard to plan a trip and to go through all the logistics, but you know, the amount of aliveness that you will feel is unparalleled, I think, to almost anything else in life. So that would be the first thing.
Yeah.
Is just come experience it.
Can you come with your family? Are you coming alone? What does that look like?
We have trips that come 12 months a year. You know, we bring hundreds of people from the U.S. to Honduras every year. So I just reach out to Humanity and Hope over social media.
Yeah.
Google Humanity and Hope United. No, I'm just kidding. It's humanityandhope.org or humanityandhopeunited.org or Humanity and Hope on Instagram. And those trips are the best way. You get to meet the Humanity and Hope team, and they're all people who are just very, very alive, very on purpose, very helpful, you know, to humanity in general, just nice people to be around.
Yeah.
But that's number one. Number two, if that feels out of reach, then follow along with Instagram. You know, we have a marketing team, professional marketing team. And so we've got new content on Instagram coming out like every day, I think.
Yeah.
So just pay attention, pay along, you know, see how families are benefiting from hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you could give money as well.
You can give money. I mean, it's a nonprofit. We're always accepting money.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Any kind. Euros.
Bitcoin. Especially
Bitcoin.
There we go. I love it. Oh man. Dude, this has been phenomenal. I loved, this is why I do this, is because I get to hear more of a friend's story, and I got to hear a lot more just about how you have been shaped and grown over time, and how I'm just really moved by how you're using your influence to help other people. And you started out with as I think most of us do, maybe even some of us start out with good intentions, but looking back at your story, you started out with selfish ambition, and then had some moments along the way, some God moments where it's like, oh no, this life is not about you. It's actually about helping other people. And you experienced a shift of what I heard was selfish ambition to holy ambition. If there's a problem, I'm angry about it, I want to do something about it. And just to see how you're using that and the life that you're living and the people that you're helping. And it's awesome to hear. And I appreciate you sharing it, man.
It's been great. I'll leave us with one of my favorite quotes that I feel like has always served me well. And it's, what's his name? I can't remember his name. He's a pastor from the early 20th century in the US, but it says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world really needs are people who have come alive.
Mm-hmm.
So, to an American, maybe that means set a goal for what you want to do this week to serve other people. I want to give $100. I want to spend an hour, and then just try to get 1% better on that.
Yeah.
Every day. But
I love that. Usually in the intro for this show, I'm talking about just if somebody could hear something that makes their life 1% better, just that small shift, the atomic habit that can build up over time, like that's the goal. And I think people heard a lot from you today that they can take with them, and I hope it transforms somebody's life. But maybe today it's just one of those seeds where it's like, whoa, was that just a crazy hallucination, or was that like a real thing? And today was the real thing, and you're always the real deal. So appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. It's fun.